Welcome back to video 3 of creating the Rolife Flowery Sweets and Tea set. In today's video, I will be creating the small wooden crate, the shop sign, the menu sandwich sign, the wooden slat privacy fence, the coffee grinder, the basket of bread, the jar of lollipops, and the cafe table. First, I'm assembling the little wooden crate. I cut out the pieces and I sanded them down to make the edges nice and smooth, and now I am assembling them with the glue. Next, I start to assemble the menu sandwich sign. I start by locating all of the wooden pieces in the wooden sheets and cut them out. You'll see here in a bit that some of these pieces are really tiny, and so I have to use tools and other ways to actually get them disconnected from the wooden sheets. And here is where I got a little bit distracted because I saw the paper cutout for the sign that goes on top of the building, and I couldn't find it earlier when I had been assembling this. So I took a little bit of a detour and I cut that out so I could include that as well. And then it's back to assembly of the menu sandwich board. I had to break out my tweezers for this one because I wanted to make sure I glued on the paper piece nice and perfectly symmetrically. And then I also took that time to glue on the front of the sign that goes on top of the building. Then it's back to assembling the menu sandwich board sign. There's a small wooden piece that goes in between the two boards, which just keeps it the perfect distance apart. And then there's a small wooden piece that attaches across the top just to make it look a little more fancy. Now it's on to cutting and assembling the wooden slats privacy fence. This was another piece that took a while to make sure all the slats were evenly spaced and at the right angle, but I did have a lot of practice from assembling the picket fence I had done in an earlier video, so by this point I was really starting to get the hang of it. One thing that was really helpful for assembly of the slats were these little notches that were on the side of the long wooden pieces. It helped me keep those slats at that angle and just made it quite easy to assemble overall. Next up, I am finding all the pieces for the coffee grinder. This piece required me to take some of the metal wire and cut a few pieces off. Those will be used for the actual grinder mechanism and the drawer pull. Next, I am stacking and gluing the wooden pieces together, which will create the wooden base of the coffee grinder. I thought this was an interesting way to assemble this piece. Instead of making it an empty wooden box, it actually stacked the wooden pieces together to give it that depth. Now I'm bending the different pieces of metal wire to create the different shapes I need for the grinder. This is where I think jewelry pliers would really come in handy. At this point, I was still using pliers from my garage kit that I keep. And unfortunately, the grooves kind of made grooves on the little metal wire pieces, which didn't look very pretty. Eventually, I do get some jewelry tools, and I think that works a lot nicer with this set. And now it's back to assembly. So first I'll take the metal wire that's bent to a drawer pull and I'll glue that on the front. And then I take the loop and the grinder handle and I put those together. And then you'll see me attach it to the silver half beads to make it look like a whole grinder. Next, I start with assembly of the bread basket. So it starts off with me cutting the wooden pieces out, which will be the loaves of bread, and then cutting out the colored parts of the loaves of bread from paper, which I'm going to glue onto the wooden loaves. Here I am also cutting out the paper bread basket. Now I'm assembling the bread basket together. I folded the edges and glued them, and then I am attaching this woven ribbon material on the outside of the basket just to make it look a little fancier. And here I am gluing the paper printing of the bread to the outside of the wooden pieces. After that's complete, it is on to assembling the lollipops in a jar. I start by measuring the sticks of the lollipops, which it was so strange. I don't even know if this was wire or string. If it was wire, it's the flimsiest wire I've ever seen. And if it's string, it's stiffer than normal string. So it was an interesting medium to work with. But then they have this tube with spiraling patterns that you actually slice up into the pieces of lollipops. And I thought that was really interesting and fun. Just the creativity that goes into the set and how they come up with these ideas to be something different than how they started it was just really fun to explore and just see that creativity come through. This is another area where you can see me experimenting with different techniques to see what would work of how to get the lollipop tops to stick to their stick bases. Eventually, I actually just put a little dab of glue on the bottom of the lollipop and then stuck it to the top of the stick, and that worked pretty well as long as I left them there to dry undisturbed. The final piece that I am assembling today is the bistro table. So it starts with me measuring and cutting what will be the gingham yellow tablecloth that covers the table. The instructions say to kind of fray the ends of the tablecloth, giving it more of a natural worn look. And so you can see me pinching off pieces of thread to give it that frayed look. Here I am measuring the blue wire, which will make the legs of the table. Once I have the wire cut, I start to bend them to give shape to the table legs. As you'll see, I kind of struggled with these table legs. I'm not sure why, but I was just having a difficult time getting them to bend and stay bent in the right direction. And then when I attached the bead and the little nubs to the very bottom of the feet of the table legs, I was just struggling all the way around. And then the hardest part was definitely getting all 3 legs to balance upright and hold the table. I did get there eventually, but it did take quite a long time. Just as a reminder, this video is in 4 times speed. So sit back, relax, listen to this music, and watch this video of me struggle. And with that, the table is finally complete. The last step I have is to put the lollipops that are now dried and glued on into the jar. And here are the completed pieces. The mini wooden crate attached the paper to the wooden sign that goes above the shop, the sandwich board menu, the wooden slat privacy wall, the coffee grinder, the bread basket, the lollipops in the jar, and the bistro table. As a reminder, if you would like to see the rest of the items created in this mini set, including the completed mini set, please follow along for future videos. Thanks for watching.